Touching his companion's arm, he informs him that it was time for the final strike. Upon hearing the command, the boy seems determined to finish the fight. Suddenly, he starts running, accelerating more and more. With his unique skill Power Strike, level 1, he charges his weapon with strength to unleash a powerful attack. The energy starts to pour out from all directions, causing movement around. Quickly, the enemy's body is engulfed in intense flames. Gradually, it completely disintegrates. At that moment, Jung-hyuk is informed that there was only one Karhan left to be finished. Without wasting time, he delivers a final blow and runs toward the other monster. Even with its twisted arm, the creature seems ready to attack. At that instant, the man calls Seo Yijin's attention. Without delay, the archer realizes the situation and decides to intervene. With her weapon, she aims at the monster's head and fires. The arrow is so fast and powerful that it pierces through the aberration's skull. In that battle mode, it took 2 hours and 20 minutes to be completed, while alone it took much less. However, there was nothing he could do due to the noise about the irregulars. Shortly after, the man in the armor comes down to congratulate Jung-hyuk. Thanks to him, the hunt was extremely easier than expected. The young man was extremely grateful for the invitation to join the battle, but his companion was very impressed with the boy's progress, who had become an irregular and a mercenary. However, his plans were more ambitious, and he aimed to organize a guild. His goal was to learn as much information as possible from that experienced warrior. A guild and a team were extremely different things. But the boy made the man reflect by saying they were quite similar in terms of organization. In that case, he began to completely change his opinion. With an unexpected proposal, he offered the opportunity to be in charge of the team this time. Confused, the protagonist seemed not to understand the meaning of that. As a leader, he had been leading the team, but now he was planning to graduate from the beginner's zone. The man informs that he couldn't stay in that zone forever, and the perfect person to take the position was Choi Jung-hyuk. Moreover, since it was not a guild, he would be able to gain a lot of experience. The girl states that everyone owed their lives to the boy, so he was much more than qualified. The young man beside her agrees with the statement, saying he was very grateful for the help received in the battle. The leader realizes that 2 members had already agreed with that possibility, and upon questioning the others, they seemed happy with the protagonist's leadership. Now Choi Jung-hyuk was officially in charge of the team's leadership position. Even confused, the people around him trusted his potential and the good he represented in society. His only duty would be to make choices that benefited everyone. Before leaving, the former leader informs about the presence of a villain who was killing hunters. The association had been trying to form a team for some time, but the best thing to do was to keep emergency contacts in case it was necessary one day. Now they seem excited to have some drinks and chat, but his idea is interrupted when he doesn't notice that the protagonist had to answer an important call. On the other end of the line, someone mentioned his brother Euncheol. The conversation seemed long and endless, but he was understanding every word. Upon hanging up, his colleague asks the reason for his serious tone. At that moment, the young man informs that the drinks would have to wait for now. Not understanding the real situation, the man in the armor seems very confused. Meanwhile, the school seems quiet with no students walking around. Inside the classroom, Jung-hyuk talks with a teacher. With concern, she explains that in recent days, Euncheol couldn't keep focus in class and was fighting with his friends. The reason for the contact was that the situation was getting worse and worse. His brother doesn't like knowing that Euncheol is fighting at school. However, she explains that the children's arguments were turning into small fights. The child explained to the teacher that the reason for the fights was because he wanted to become stronger like his father. Jung-hyuk is shocked to hear that they say he would awaken as a tanker and become as strong as his father. At that moment, the hunter realizes that scolding and giving warnings was not the best way to educate. Realizing the situation created, the teacher tries to end the conversation in the best way possible. With clarity in her eyes, she asks the young man in front of her for a favor. Periodically, the school asks parents to be teachers for a day, and on that occasion, the presence of the hunter Choi Jung-hyuk would be a good way to explain the profession and tell stories. Currently, the children were interested in the hunter profession, and you should talk about the dangers and difficulties. In the end, the teacher believed it would be a good experience for the students. Meanwhile, Euncheol was alone in a hallway. Shortly after, his brother leaves the classroom. Looking to the side, he starts staring at the boy with curiosity. Before he could say anything, the boy was already apologizing for his actions. He explains that he fought because his classmates didn't believe that his brother was the tanker from television. He was called a liar because they believed he couldn't have a brother like that since he had no living parents. Noticing the boy's distress, Jung-hyuk reached out his hand. The child's feelings were real and his brother was not angry. With a smile on his face, he asks him to bring his friends later to eat something delicious. At that moment, Euncheol's eyes fill with tears. The child quickly runs into his older brother's arms. Choi Jung-hyuk is confused by his reaction, not understanding anything. Looking at the city, he thinks there was no way to stop his younger brother from becoming a hunter. If he was destined for that, in the end, he would become one just like Jung-hyuk himself became a villain. The desire for a hopeful life seems very distant at that moment. He quickly remembers Daesu's words. The great catastrophe was really only the beginning, as the world was destined for destruction. Besides the more frequent appearances of monsters and the decreasing resources, villains were a threat. Choi Jung-hyuk reflects on his friend's thoughts and the necessary items for his brothers. In the end, the